So right here we have a Mercedes C63 AMG. Lovely looking car, more modern, more fresh, and it's got a really nice roof on it as well. And next to it we have a C43 AMG. Again, a lovely car. But right now I'm not interested in either of these cars because what I've got to show you today is this. Is the edition 507 Mercedes C63 AMG, the W204 generation, and my gosh, is it a good looking car. I'm going to quickly go around the car and take you guys for a little drive as well to answer the question whether these standard, maybe non-edition 507 versions of these are really great value for money right now. Before we go for a drive, I want to talk about some of the key differences for a 507 versus a standard W204 C63. The obvious one is right here at the bonnet. It's an SLS-inspired, more bulky and aggressive bonnet to deal with what is actually an insane engine. A 6.2 litre V8 which puts out around 450 to 480 brake horsepower in the standard C63. In this, of course, is putting out over 500, it's in the name. And a lot of that comes because it's got forged pistons, connecting rods, and crankshaft borrowed from the SLS AMG. What we should hopefully find out today is that increases the throttle response and makes the car behave that little bit more aggressively from a responsiveness point of view. Outside of that, it's not a huge amount of differences aesthetically. Yes, you've got this nice little stripe, which is the telltale sign, plus these lovely alloys. And normally when I come to see my friends here at Motorland, I'm reviewing a car that's actually on sale. This one isn't. Mr. Motorland himself, the owner of Motorland, this is his car. So I'm gonna be extra careful today. And he's done some very slight modifications just to uprate that look even more. You can see the carbon fiber down here at the front, the carbon fiber on the wing mirrors, and then also little carbon fiber spoiler and the carbon fiber splitter at the rear. Let's jump inside the car very quickly because in here it's also pretty stunning and there's a couple minor changes compared to the standard car. Obviously you can see the 507 over here. But the core thing I think is quite interesting about these, that this 507 is probably worth around about 40 grand. That's quite a lot of money for a relatively old performance coupe. But interestingly, the normal W204 C63 is worth sub 15k in some instances. Of course, this comes with a coupe, saloon, and an estate as well. And 15 grand for a naturally aspirated V8 that you get in one of these is just obscene. Let's take it for a drive and find out exactly how cool it is. So you may remember a while back I did a video with Motorland where I drove the BMW M3 Coupe, E92 that was, and I drove the Audi S4. And this car in its more standard spec is kind of a competitor to those cars. Similar era, similar performance, similar engine, all the rest. And for me, it comes from arguably one of the best eras of cars. It's probably like one of my Goldilocks eras where cars were still naturally aspirated, still broadly analog, but they got just enough niceties and that kind of stuff in them to make you feel at home and practical and all the rest. Obviously, it's more modern, but it's not overly modern is what I'm trying to say here. I've often struggled with more modern cars that don't quite have that, like, you know, that bit of grit to them. So what I'm basically saying is hopefully this thing lives up to its age a bit. And driving out here on just some city roads, this car feels very comfortable. I don't feel like I'm in something crazy, aggressive, all the rest of it. The only things that are kind of giving that away for me are the super aggressive lines on the bonnet, the tickle of a V8 in the background, and the constant thought process that the wheel arches on this thing are so wide, I really need to get my bearings of how big this car actually is. It's obviously from a smaller era of car, but the wheel arches are still massive. So I've driven a lot of very fast cars recently, and a lot of them haven't felt very good at slow speeds. Some of them felt better, some have felt worse. This reminds me of like the RS6 and cars like that, where when I drove them slowly, they were super chill doing it. I don't feel like I need to go fast. I don't feel like the car wants to go fast. I just feel like it's comfortable, chilled out, I'm having a good time. Kind of ignoring the fact that I've got 500 brake horsepower below my right foot. For me, the 507 wouldn't make sense. I'm not a Mercedes collector. I'm not specifically like going after the fastest of the fastest Mercedes that I can possibly get into in the C63 generation, etc. So that 40 grand doesn't really make sense. However, sub 20k for literally this package, without some of the forging and some of the special stuff that this car gets on top and some of the sharpening, that's very, very reasonable. Also, I often give Mercedes a hard time because they update their interiors so consistently that it's hard to keep up. Given that recently I've been actually harassing them a bit more for the quality of their interiors and the lack of good materials in there, this feels significantly nicer than some of the newer Mercedes I've been in. I'm loving the Alcantara on the steering wheel. I'm loving the metal shifters behind the wheel as well. Like, that is very, very nice. I can't help myself but hold on to them at times, even though I'm driving an automatic. And actually, I think I'm a bit of a fan. It's really quite nice in here, having a few more manual, analog looking parts of the car, some really, really nice and well put together materials, not just plastic everywhere and all the rest of it. This is significantly nicer than the A45 AMG, for example, that I drove around in. And if I give it a little blip, I can tell straight away it's going to be quite quick. Yeah, it's going to be very quick. It sounds good as well. It's so weird. It like comes into power quite late, roguely. Oh wow, that really does feel good. Wow. Yeah, that is nice and quick, and it sounds amazing. It sounds absolutely amazing. I genuinely think that this V8 is one of the best sounding V8s from Europe ever. The fact that it's naturally aspirated and all the rest of it as well really does go down a treat. It sounds purposeful, it sounds a bit more brutal, and it probably absolutely chomps through petrol as well. One thing I will say about the engine though is that it's quite heavy, and so far on some of these more dynamic corners I have struggled to work out where the front is. Now obviously I'm not pushing crazy fast, I need to be sensible. However, I do find it a bit weird just how heavy the front feels compared to the rear at times. Feels like it wants to push at the front rather than slide at the rear, if you know what I mean. Now I appreciate, by the way, when I review cars, I often review them from a driver's perspective. I'm not really doing it from a day-to-day driving around practicality perspective. Yes, the car's plenty dynamic, it drives around beautifully, it sits comfortably. I'm actually really happy with the ride height as well. Like, it's not super low, which meant that going through those city roads and going over some speed bumps, I was pretty chill. I'm just saying that when I've pushed it into a corner, I've not necessarily felt the front very well. It does feel sharp though, it does feel responsive. Like if I turn the wheel, I feel like I get an immediate response. I feel like when I press the throttle, I get an immediate response. I do feel like the torque in this engine definitely comes in kind of the mid part of the range. Like the first bit is not hugely torquey, then it picks up and just gives you a whole load of grunt. Give it a little blip here. Yeah, definitely in the mid ranges is where it seems to want to pick up super aggressively and start going. That sound is just sublime. Must be one of the best sounding cars I've ever driven. I'm struggling to talk to you just because I'm enjoying the sound so much. Yeah, that's serious. That's a serious noise. AMG knew exactly what they were doing when they were putting this car together, because that sounds stunning. And the brakes are good as well. Whoa, my gosh. Yeah, that's proper. This is just a smile factory. That's what it is. It's just a smile factory. It's a point and squirt smile factory. Now, I'm obviously aware of the fact that this is the 507, and I'm trying not to focus too aggressively on that because this is a very special, interesting and useful car. But if the standard C63 holds a candle to this in terms of enjoyment from like a pure ecstasy of the sound perspective, tightness of the steering perspective, little bit unruly as well with that very heavy front and much more chilled out rear, then I personally think that it will be great value for money. And I can see why Mr. Motorland himself owns this car. I really do understand why people love these so much. I'll be honest, I've never been a huge C63 AMG fan from this generation. It's not really been my thing. But the fact that it does that, and it does that so easily, yeah, serious car this. I think the only real problem that I've found with this car so far is the fuel. It's disappearing quite quickly. Let's make some use of these paddles, shall we? Because I really want to give it a go. Wow, those are some nice paddles. Not quite as quick on the shifts as some more modern Mercedes, but seriously nice still. It's a very confidence-inspiring car, to be fair, considering I've got 500 brake at my disposal. Because it's naturally aspirated, I love how linear the power delivery is. Obviously, I've mentioned that torque in the kind of mid-ranges, but It's linear, it's not over the top, it's not silly, it feels very intuitive. I feel like I know what I'm doing as I'm pressing the throttle. I feel like I know exactly where things are going. Yeah, big fan of this. It's quick, it's naturally aspirated, it sounds like an absolute monster, and my gosh, am I having a good time. It makes sense. It absolutely wholeheartedly makes sense. I've given so many Mercedes such a bad rap on this channel. Think about the A45 AMG, I was not a fan. Think about the standard A-Class, I was not a fan. I drove like the C220D or whatever in like AMG line. It was fine, right? It was just a fine car. I didn't understand why it was so expensive, but it was a fine car. I've absolutely loved cruising around in this so far. I just think it's bang on. I think it's kind of cheating. It's bang on my perfect era for cars. And that's why, for me, it just makes sense. It's what cars are supposed to do. I think people complain about like emissions regs and that kind of stuff. I'm not fussed so much about emissions as I am about sound. The fact that sound is considered an emission nowadays is such a shame, because the way this thing sounds is it's a huge part of making you feel a certain type of way while driving it. And it's not just the sound of the engine, it's the sound of those clickers as well. These aluminium, I think they are, shifters. All of it together is what makes this stunning, just amazing feeling whilst you're driving it. I'm all over this, boys. Absolutely all over this. As I said, I've never been a huge fan of this generation's looks. I've never been a guy who wanted one of these specifically, but this is a really nice car to drive. I might have genuinely enjoyed this car at least as much as the E92 M3, if not a little more. I am putting some 507 tax on that though. I was ready to start this video complaining about the interior feeling outdated and blah, 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 but no, I think this is a really good car. And Mr. Motorland, first of all, thank you very much for letting me drive your car around and trusting me with it, because this is an absolute stunner. And second of all, fair play, sir. Great choice. I need to drive this in non-507 spec just to double check that it's as good as the E92 M3 was. And it probably is. So let's end it there. Do I like the W204 C63 AMG? Absolutely. Would I have one? Absolutely. It's fast, it's fun, and it sounds fantastic. If you enjoyed this video, do subscribe for more videos like this. Going back to Motorland now to drive some other cars, so we can go and watch those videos very, very soon. But click on screen to see another review that I did with Motorland a little while ago.